Hello and welcome to the show. Round 14. How are you all tonight? Are we good? Well, we've got a belter of a show for you tonight. Coming up, we've got our guest tonight is Brian Halliday, who is an expert in the power of persuasion. Using your power of persuasion, for example, if you want to nail that job interview, or if you're self employed and you want to get more clients, why not use the power of persuasion to do that? If you want to learn more about that, contact our guest tonight, Brian Halliday, at some point in the future. Also, we'll be doing some meditation practice tonight. We're not going to be doing any gentle movement because we did that last week. So tonight we're going to be practicing some concentration meditation technique tonight. And so if you're new to the show, welcome. The show has been running for about 14 weeks now, and we've built up a gang of followers called the Raconteurs. And the reason we do this show live is because you can interact with me, or you can interact with each other on the Facebook Messenger box. So we have our Raconteurs that join us every time or most times that we do our broadcast. So our first raconteur tonight, we welcome William Ritchie. Welcome, William. It's good to see you. William's an old friend of mine. And we also welcome Haley Pender. And Haley's a faithful raconteur of the show. So welcome, folks. I hope you enjoy tonight's show. And if anyone out there is new to the show, you can come on the messenger box and say hello, or you can ask questions about anything in general to do with mental health or well-being. But before we start our exercises and speak to our guests, I'm just going to do a few announcements. And this, if you're new to the show, this show is also recorded to YouTube of the same channel name, Vincent Anthony Media, because you might miss the live show, or you might have friends or colleagues or family who miss the show, or you might miss the show one week. You can go into YouTube and watch all our shows there as often as you like. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, I'd quite like to get into this live streaming game. If you're a Mac user, you can go into my website. I'll just dial in my site here. Vincent Anthony Media, just down there. On the home page, all the tabs are on the home page. You can click on the eCam link, and that's you on your way to doing your own show, your own broadcasting. Also, if you'd like to donate to the show, if you'd like to do something for mental health, you can click on the donation tab, and any donations will be greatly appreciated. I can maybe invest in a USB mic or something to improve the technical quality of the productions. Or perhaps you're a business or a company and you'd like to advertise on the show, you'd like to sponsor our show, we can put your logo up on the screen, or perhaps produce a little TV-style advert for your company. That's all on the homepage on Vincent Anthony Media. You can click on the tabs on the homepage there. So that's our announcements over. And this week, instead of, I usually start the show by talking about some kind of technique or philosophical topic related to mindfulness or meditation. But this week, for a change, I'm going to actually talk about a subject that really quite upset me this week, and I want to use this show to send out a message. And where to begin? Well, some of our raconteurs are filmmakers, and they run professional video companies, and they've had some of their TV adverts on terrestrial television, and their adverts were for a charity, which was an animal welfare charity. And I feel very passionate about when or rather, I get very upset when I hear about cruelty to animals. And I mentioned that on the last show. I mentioned this at the beginning. However, this week I was very upset to see on social media in the Far East in China, they've got the dog eating festival. Now, approximately a year ago, I saw some horrific video um, that got leaked onto social media. And don't worry, folks, I'm not going to show you any images because it's too disturbing for most people to look at. But I saw this horrific video of these two Oriental men. They were torching dogs and cats for no other reason than the enjoyment. They were torching them with a blowtorch. And I was so horrified and angry that I actually shared that video on Facebook. And it went right around the world several times, around the Western world. And people were absolutely outraged. And I decided I wanted to do something about it. Now, folks, I've lived in the Far East and I've been aware of what's going on. But many years ago, when I was there, I was like one white guy against 10,000 Orientals, and there was nothing much I could do. I felt totally helpless but really sad about it. But now, 20 years later, I can at least do more about it. So as I was saying last week, I was really disappointed to see more images of this dog eating festival in a place called Yulan. It's just north of Hong Kong, if you want to see where this takes place. And it might be taking place in other towns in China as well. And I'd have to emphasize it's not every Chinese person that does this, because I've lived in the Far East and I've had friends that had pet cats and they loved their cats. But the government is allowing this to go on, and that's where the problem is. Something as barbaric and horrific as that should be made illegal, even in a communist country. Okay? So I was disappointed to see more images of this Yulan festival coming up on Facebook. And then I think for me, the final straw was then I saw a video, this time from Korea. And in Korea, they actually breed and eat dogs. And I saw these horrific images. Again, I'm not going to show you any images because it's too disturbing. But I saw this video, and this Oriental man had a cage of like little husky type dogs, and he couldn't be bothered to carry the cage. Okay, so what he did was he lifted up one end, pushed it, turned it over, and these dogs were getting toppled over inside this cage, and their little paws were getting cut by the wires. And to these people, animals are not have no feelings. They treat animals like without any sense of compassion whatsoever. And I saw that video and I thought that's enough. And I actually did write on that actual Facebook page. I said I'm going to take action. I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do it on Thursday night. Now, for those of you who know me, you'll know that when I say I'm going to do something, I will actually do it. So what can we do? What can we do about these horrors going on in the Far East? Well, actually, there is a lot we can do, and we can do it from the comfort of our own armchair. So I'm going to dial in my. I'm going to get my auto cue here, because I've had this little list of things that I'm personally going to do, and you can do as well. If you are upset by, if you see stories on social media about in China and Korea of the cruelty to animals and the way they're treated, and if you're feeling helpless, you don't have to feel helpless. It's very, very easy to make a change, because we have the power of the internet and we have the power of social media. So I'm going to give you some examples of what I'm doing that you can also do. And it's very easy. Okay? Now, I've lived in the Far East, and I know these people, and I know that they're very, very, that they're only interested in mainly materialism and money. And I can say that because I've lived there and talked with them and lived with them. Okay, so they're very materially oriented, which is why they treat animals the way they do on these dog farms. Okay, so how do you affect that? Well, all you do is you kick them where it hurts the most, in their money bags. Okay, how do you do that? Here's an example. I practice what I preach. Okay, so if you, for those of you who have watched this show before, you'll remember in the announcements I used to tell people that if they wanted to obtain a certain quadcopter, to click on my DJI link. Well, I've now taken that link off my website. Even if that harms me in some way, I've taken the link off. I no longer mention them. Okay, so I'm practicing what I'm preaching. So that link's been removed. So in theory, that's possibly less income for the Chinese. Okay, don't buy Korean cars and phones. You know, you all know. I don't need to mention any brand names. We all know the main phone that people buy. If you want to do something, go for an iPhone instead. Okay, we all know the main Korean car brands in Britain. If you want to do something, buy a German car, buy a French car, buy a Japanese car, but don't buy Korean. Okay? Don't go to Chinese restaurants or Korean restaurants. Don't even get a takeaway, even if the people running these restaurants have never lived in China. Do you know why? Because when they ask you why are you not coming back to a restaurant, you can remind them about the cruelty to animals in China and Korea. And I can assure you, even if they've never lived in China or don't speak Chinese, they'll be straight on the phone to their uncles and aunties in China saying, look, by the way, you better stop your cruelty to animals because you're ruining our business. So that's another way you can make a change. Okay. I was going to start buying products from something called AliExpress, but no. Instead, because of what I've seen on the internet, I'm just going to keep buying products from Amazon, even if it costs me 200, £300 more, because I practice what I preach, and that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm just going to dial in an image here of Mr. David Icke. Now, David Icke, I remember reading in one of his books, and he was talking about what I've just said. And what he said in his books is that all of us on a subconscious stroke spiritual level will know which industries are destroying the planet. We'll know which ones are being cruel to sentient beings. So on a subconscious level, we will actually choose not to buy certain products. Okay? So we're doing it anyway, but I'm making a conscious effort to tell you tonight, because I said I would on the internet. I said I'd do something, so I'm doing it. Don't buy, if you're in the Currys or PC World or somewhere and you see a product and it says made in China, don't buy it. Buy something else that was made somewhere else. Never before have we had so much choice of things to buy. Okay, so that's how you do it. If you want to stop cruelty to animals in the Far East, kick them where it hurts them hardest, in their money bags, and we can do it right here from the power of our armchairs. Okay, by just simply choosing not to buy from these countries that inflict cruelty to animals. So there we have it. That was what I wanted to say, and it's what I wanted to do after the images that I've seen. And so I will, as of now, I will continue to boycott any Korean or Chinese products or services. Now, if these governments in China and Korea could only realize they could turn this whole thing around, they could stop that practice, and instead they could create animal sanctuaries and protect the animals and show an example to the rest of the world how to take care of animals, how to respect animals. Now, we eat animals in the West, of course, yes, but they are um, um, we deal with them humanely. Um, they're not certainly not tortured that I've seen, and I myself am 98% vegetarian stroke vegan, so I don't really eat animals myself. Sometimes I have some sardines on toast, but that's about it. But if I did eat meat, at least I can eat it knowing that when the animals were put to death, they were put to death humanely. Okay, there's a big difference there. So I'm not saying that everyone should be vegetarian or feel guilty about eating meat, but we're simply here talking about unnecessary, deliberate torture of animals in the Far East. And as far as I'm concerned, in my lifetime, it's got to stop, and we can stop it here in the West. by choosing, using our consumer power is the only answer I can think of. Consumer power to boycott products that come from China and Korea until they change their ways. Maybe they will. Until they do, I'm going to boycott their products from now on. That's what I'm going to do. That's the best I can do. And I know that there are these horrible images on Facebook, but I find that I have to look at them. I can't just delete them and look away. I have to face up to, I have to look at cruelty that's going on, because that will motivate me to actually do something or say something. And it's so wonderful that we have this live streaming capability now that I can pass that message on. So I hope you've listened to what I've said, and I hope you'll think about it and mull it over, and then perhaps the next time you're out shopping, you can decide which products you want to buy to help make this world a better place. So that's that. I've said it. So now what we're going to do is tonight we're going to do some meditation, some concentration meditation. Now, why is it good for us to do meditation? Well, concentration meditation is a really good practice if you suffer from overthinking, okay, from rumination. Because if you ruminate too much negative rumination, you'll end up going on that downward spiral of mental illness, which leads to physical illness, which leads to more mental illness, and so on, okay? And you can actually get trapped in this overthinking, and before you know it, you're wasting your life away. Instead of getting on with doing something useful or just being useful, you're wasting your time stuck in autopilot. So one way to break that vicious cycle, to counteract rumination, is to practice what we call concentration meditation. Okay? Now there are 3 R's associated with meditation. Relax the body, to reset or reboot the mind so that we can refocus on doing what we should have been doing in the first place, or just being what we should have been in the first place. Okay, so that's the purpose. And we need a focus. So in our exercise, we're going to use the Tibetan singing bowls and the dragon bells, because these instruments emit a healing vibration. There are different types of concentration meditation. When I used to run classes, we mainly used the instruments. That was my favorite form of concentration meditation. But you can also focus on the breath as well, or we can do a visual exercise where we look at a symbol, a mandala. But that usually tends to be really hard when you do that, because your brain starts coming up with thoughts such as, this is boring, or I should be doing something more useful right now. So the singing bowls are the most enjoyable form of concentration meditation. The technique is you simply, eyes open or eyes closed, focus on the sound as much as you can, and then if thoughts come in, you come back to the sound. Now, if you don't have singing bowls at home, there are other things you can do which I think are just as good as meditating on the sounds of singing bowls. For example, I like music. I like playing the bass guitar. So if you practice playing a musical instrument, you're essentially doing the same as you do in concentration meditation. You're focusing on the sound, you're focusing on the rhythm, you're focusing on placing your hands on the instrument. That's concentration meditation as well. And that's what I do. I actually don't have time to sit down and meditate, okay? But I have plenty of time to practice guitar or do things which are similar. However, tonight we're all together, so we can motivate ourselves to do some concentration meditation. So if you're ready, I want you to relax, and this will last for about maybe 10-12 minutes, and just focus on these sounds from the singing bowls. And Haley's saying that drumming definitely helps. Yes, drumming, definitely, that's a form of concentration meditation, because you're developing your concentration skills. And when you're doing that, you're stopping autopilot from coming in. You're stopping those thoughts about the past, future, or just thoughts in general, and you're just being at one with your instrument. So what I'm going to do is, if you're ready, I'm going to start the videotape, and just see how you get on. So let's run VT. So, how did you get on? Did you enjoy that? Did you manage to concentrate on the sound and come out of autopilot just for 10 minutes? So, hope you had a good meditation, and I wished I had the the motivation to actually do that every day, but I just find that practicing mindfulness, practical mindfulness on the go, works better for me. And as I said earlier, I do actually enjoy my music practice most days, so I am doing concentration most of the week on a regular basis. And I was just reading a comment here by Haley, and I'm very pleased to hear that she says she's been a vegetarian since October, and she tries not to use products that have been tested on animals. So well done, Haley. Excellent. And it's time now for me to bring you our guest on the show, Brian Halliday. And just to recap, Brian is an expert on the art of persuasion and how you can use persuasion to help manifest the things you want in your life. So, if you're ready, without further ado, let's hear what Brian had to say. Run VT. And today we welcome Brian Halliday of Advanced Minds. Brian is a hypnotist and also an NLP practitioner. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hi Vincent, how are you? It's good to see you.
Now, before we go into the questions, I'm just going to introduce Brian, tell you how I actually met him. And I've known Brian for many years. I actually first met him when I was first starting out in business in about 2010. And I was in a little networking group in Edinburgh, and we used to meet in a little cafe off Leith Walk down in the basement. And Brian came along one day to give us a talk on persuasion marketing. And I remember him, he got my interest because he was telling us about how people are persuaded to buy things which are rubbish. For example, he was telling us about books that sell like hotcakes, such as books on SES techniques on how to kill people, 101 SES techniques on how to kill a person, and these books sell like hotcakes, but yet people who buy them probably don't actually kill people. So why did they buy the books in the first place? So this is what got me interested in listening to Brian's. And Brian's very unique because his specialisation is in persuasion. Okay? But we're going to find out more from Brian how he got to this stage. So Brian, before you started Advanced Minds, what were you doing before?
Well, I've got quite an unusual background in this sort of field because I actually started off as a stage hypnotist. In fact, hypnosis is something I've been interested in all my life, and I used to hypnotise people at school really badly, but that's where I started. But I started off as a stage hypnotist and in the 90s, and I performed in all kinds of events, all kind of venues, from large theatres of up to 1,000 or more to working men's clubs to students' unions. And I even started off in pubs. So I had quite a big experience and a wide experience of doing hypnotising people in all different kinds of situations. And the thing that really affected me back then was when I first discovered that if you take people through a simple process, you structure your language in a specific way, you take them through a simple ritual, you can have a profound impact upon their perceptions. You can make them see things that are not there. You can make them not be able to see things that are obviously there right in front of them. You can strip away all their inhibitions, and you can have them behaving in all kinds of ways they wouldn't normally do. But the big thing that really got me when I started doing this back then was that most of the people who got on stage with me for a full 2-hour show had absolutely no memory or recollection of what happened, had complete amnesia. And even today, that's still something that it's something that really, really impresses me. But as time went on, I moved away from the stage hypnosis, and what I discovered was that the process that we call hypnosis and we see on the stage is nothing special. In fact, it's a process that happens every single day in our day-to-day daily activities. And the words that we use and how we structure our language has a profound impact upon the people around us and how they perceive us. So if you're in business, it's critical that you understand this and you also learn how to use this, because working with business people, I've actually seen businesses lose thousands and thousands of pounds worth the contracts because of one or two words that were seemed innocent, and two habitual phrases that were creating the wrong impressions and were getting the wrong responses. And so when I first started to work with businesses, one of the first companies that I worked with was a company, it was Mercedes-Benz dealerships, car dealerships, and I helped them I helped them break sales records with only 2 days training. And then one of the other sort of big organisations I worked with was with Bernardo's. They'd already had a £240,000 corporate donation, and I helped them move that to a £1 million commitment in a single meeting. Plus, they also got thousands of pounds worth of additional help and services they never really knew that existed. I used to work with quite a lot of recruitment agencies. One recruitment agency, for example, won the contract to supply the labour for Edinburgh trams. And I've worked with all kinds of companies, media companies, and all that kind of stuff. On a therapy level, the kind of people that sort of come to me, or the kind of people that I like working with, are really emotional problems. And so people who are stuck because of they're maybe stuck in the past, or they're maybe suffering from anxiety or depression. And usually what I do is I offer a unique process, which I call a performance acceleration process, which they can come and work with me if they qualify, and they can get rid of the problem in a day. So instead of going into counselling or other forms of therapy for weeks or months, they can come and get rid of this or resolve this problem really, really fast. I also find working with entrepreneurs and business people that most business problems are personal problems. So that's the kind of stuff I do, and that's really what Advanced Mind is about, really.
So, Brian's worked with a variety of clients, and he's also worked in big business like the golf industry, which is worth millions, maybe billions of dollars. Brian, tell us about your experience of working with the big golfers.
Well, I haven't worked with big golfers, but I did work with one professional, a guy called Elliot Saltman, who was he basically got caught cheating. And even if you Google his name today, you'll see all the big names try to ban him. And what basically happened with Elliot is he came to work with me on a new program I was developing called Secret Golf Mind. And the idea behind it, that not just golf, but everything that we do unconsciously. We only think we've got a conscious mind. In fact, neuroscientists tell us they'll only use something like 6% of our conscious mind. Everything else is unconscious, and it's on autopilot, right? So, I'll just give you a couple of examples. For example, lifting up a glass of water and putting it to your lips. You might think that's a conscious decision, but it involves something like 120 muscles. In fact, even your throat has 50 pairs of muscles. There's 100 muscles involved in just swallowing a glass of water, and so therefore we can actually control these muscles consciously. So we've actually got programs that do it for us. And also, if you think about other sort of daily activities we take for granted, like for example, running down a flight of steps, you might think that that's a conscious thing. But if you think the biocomputations needed in order to move your body mass safely down a flight of steps, it's phenomenal. So we couldn't do that consciously. So we have all these innate programs inside us that do it for us. So we have these, we also have what we call unconscious set points. And unconscious set points, we have them in every area of our life. So for example, we have them in our health. So if you want to see where your set points are with your health, you look at your health. We have them in our relationships. We have them in our finances. If you want to see where your set points are currently set with your finances, look at your bank account. That will tell you, right? You have them everywhere. And you also have them in business performance, and you also have them in sports performance. And getting back to working with Elliot, what I did was I created a program called Secret Golf Mind. I thought this would be great because one day I woke up and I just realised, looking at Google Maps, how much greenery there is in Scotland, and there's a huge amount of that greenery taken up in golf. So I thought this is going to be the perfect business opportunity. So it took me about 2 years to develop this program, and I did some talks in local golf clubs, and I did a few seminars and started working with golfers. And when Elliot came along, he was in a place where, if you look at his PR, you can still Google his name. He was completely a completely negative, bad PR, and he was crippled with anxiety and he couldn't move forward and he hadn't done anything for a couple of years. So I worked with him. And Secret Golf Mind is based on the same thing, that golf is an unconscious game. You can't play it consciously, you have to do it unconsciously. And everything that you get in the industry in golf is designed to bring you into the conscious awareness, which in turn just makes your golf worse. But selling you new golf clubs, selling you new programs, selling you all these, all these kind of digital contraptions is huge business. So anyway, I worked with Elliot, and that couple of weeks after he finished my program, he actually came third in the Irish Bank Open. Following weeks after that, he won the Irish Masters. He totally smashed Colin Montgomery's records. He was number one in the Euro Tour, and he also qualified for the Masters after having this few years of real bad run. And overnight, his PR changed. He was getting positive interviews in Scotsman. He was interviewed on Sky TV, and all of a sudden, his online presence had become really positive, and they were asking him where he got this new relaxed form of golf. And of course, I think I was fated by calling it Secret Golf Mind. The golfers that I've worked with want to keep it a secret, so he never disclosed that. But what happened was, at that point, his golf coach actually decided that he didn't need me any longer. They cut me out of the equation, undid all the work, and overnight his golf plummeted. They never did golf again. Round about that time as well, I also was supposed to be working with this guy who did the prospectus for the Scottish PGA, and I was going to become part of the degree prospectus, and he actually wanted to give me 18 golf coaches to teach the mindset part of golf. But what happened was, at the last minute, I got banned from the PGA. They didn't want to work with me. I got banned from all my golf courses around me because they actually make their money out of selling golf clubs. So, for example, if you are not confident around a certain hole, they sell you a £200 golf club and various lessons. So they haven't found a way of actually making money out of hypnosis. So they didn't want me to be involved. So I got banned by the PGA, and that was the story behind that.
And like many of our guests, Brian has also got lived experience of anxiety, stroke, depression, stroke, stress. So Brian, can you tell us a little bit about that, and also what you did to get yourself out of that dark space?
Well, like many people, I can be a wee bit predisposed to a bit of depression and a bit of anxiety now and again. So it's something I fight with all my life. But I remember when this all started, I would be about 18, and I had quite a tough upbringing, and I didn't have a very good relationship with my father, who was an alcoholic. So at 18, I went through a period of being really depressed and really anxious, and it got so bad that I was nearly hospitalised. And then I overheard a conversation with my mother and my father, who were really worried. And apparently the doctors had actually diagnosed me with schizophrenia, and they were about to hospitalise me. Now, my father, probably one of the good things he really did for me was he actually took the medication and he put it down the toilet. And so what happened was, I actually went to my bed and I locked myself away for a few weeks listening to police albums. And after a couple of days, for the first time in months, I actually started to enjoy the music. Started to enjoy just being on my own. And about a month later, I was kind of fine. It probably took me about a year to fully recover, but I was okay after a few months. And I actually believe to this day, if I had been hospitalised and went down that route, I would probably still have that label of being schizophrenic and all the kind of limitations that go with that. And it was that experience that really solidified it for me, that in most cases, if you give your mind the right circumstances, the right peace and quiet, that we've got these things inside us, that it will basically reset itself. And that was, there was also another side to this, was that, like I said to you earlier before, I've always been interested in hypnosis since I was at school. And during that period, to try and deal with it, I was trying to learn Kundalini yoga, or meditation at the time. And what I would do, just out of curiosity, I was trying to reach enlightenment. And what I would do is I would lock myself in my bedroom and I would meditate for 2 or 3 hours a day, every day, just to see what would happen. And what happened was that I had this experience where after a few days of this, I started to feel the energy. It was like electric shocks coming up my spine, which was what is meant to happen. But then one day I had this experience where it was like a flashing light just came up my spine, filled my head. My head got knocked back and my mouth opened up, and I just had this experience of this light, uncontrollable light, like energy. I don't know what it was, and from that point forward, I started to experience symptoms of psychosis. I started to get really confused. I had hallucinations. I heard voices. I actually thought I could read people's minds, and that was probably what led to the diagnosis of schizophrenia. But years later, I actually found out, reading up about it, there is such a thing as Kundalini psychosis, and what they recommend is that you never try and practice psychosis when you're in a bad place, because if you do release this energy all at once and you're in a bad place, it's hard to control. So the truth is, I don't know if I had Kundalini psychosis. I don't know if I had just temporary psychosis or whatever it was. But when I did sort of like retreat into my bedroom into peace and quietness, my mind sorted itself out. But that was a really interesting period of my life, and that's what really set me on the path to where I am today. So the way I actually overcome the anxiety in the long run was I actually took up meditation, but in a much more a much more simpler form, and I just started to get back into because one of the things you have to do, especially with depression, is the thing about depression. What I found over the years is depression tends to happen when we don't have a future to look forward to. And so when the future is kind of ripped out of us, our mind doesn't function. So what you have to do really is you have to get going again. You have to get that new future built back into your mind. And one of the things that I was doing back then was I was really keen martial artist. In fact, up until that point, I was a Scottish junior karate champion. So it was something I took seriously. So I got myself back into physical exercise as soon as possible, got myself back into training, even though I didn't feel like doing it. In fact, there was days when I was depressed, I was so low on energy, I couldn't pull myself out of bed, but I did it. And I would go out and I would walk and I would get back into jogging, I'd get back into the gym, I'd go back into training. So that was the first thing, right? The other thing was, it was my eating. I found when I was going through this, I stopped eating. And again, I was reading about these monks who would lock themselves in dark caves and basically they wouldn't eat and they would get all these hallucinations. So basically I actually started eating again. So what I did was I started focusing on where I wanted to go. I started to create a future for myself. The next step that I did was I actually started to get back into physical training, and the last step was that I would start eating again. And these were the sort of three things that really got me back. It didn't get me back overnight. Over a period of months, I found that I was back to full mental health again.
So, following on from what Brian's just said, I'm going to ask Brian a question which I ask many of our guests, and that is, Brian, can you give us some of your handy tips on how to deal with stress, anxiety, depression, because a lot of people watching this show will be suffering from these things?
Right, well, the first three tips are the ones I just gave you, right? First of all, you need something to focus on in the future. You need to focus on in the future, and you need to create a future where you want a future that's positive, if you like. Second thing is your eating. You need to eat well. In fact, recently I went through another tough time in my life because my mother got really ill with dementia, and I became her primary carer, and I looked after her for 5 years, and I had a really detrimental effect on my mental health. But one of the things I did last year, she's in care now, but one of the things I did last year was I changed my diet. I actually became vegan. I'm not 100% vegan. I still eat the odd bit of, in fact, to be honest with you, I thought it was a lot of crap, and I never thought I would do it. But I made this new friend who's an ex-boxer who convinced me to try it. And I can't tell you the positive effects I've had from being vegan. I still eat the odd bit of meat, but I've lost about 1.5 stone. But I've also put on muscle because I've got back into training. I don't have any injuries whatsoever. And just overall, I just feel so much better. So I would recommend at least becoming partly vegan. So definitely eat in. The next thing, take up some kind of mental training, some kind of meditation to focus on, right? And exercise. So these are the three things, right, I've already given you, right? The other two things that I would definitely tell you to do, right, is be really careful about what you allow to seep into your mind, right? So the first thing is get off social media as much as you can. Things like Facebook. Try and get involved in any sort of long kind of conversations on Facebook, especially around politics in this current situation. One of the things I think you've got to realise about the media is owned by 5 or 6 people, right? And these 5 or 6 people are all coming from the same agenda. So it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter if you believe, for example, if the current virus is real or if it's some other kind of plan, that whatever. It doesn't matter what side of the fence that you sit on, but you have to realise that the reality that you're being presented through the media, there's an agenda behind it, and it's not the complete picture, right? And so what's covered and what's not covered is planned by these 4 or 5 people, and it's planned to have an effect on what you think and how you behave. So the thing is, it's a bit like, for example, when you get into the media, so whether it's Facebook or the TV or the news, whenever you get engaged in that arena, it's a bit like being in a swimming pool. And if you've ever been in any of these swimming pools that have the wave machines, these five people have control of the wave machines. And so what happens is you're in the swimming pool, right, and you're trying to fight against these waves, but you've no control of the levers. So the minute one wave goes, they hit you with another one. So what I suggest you do is you get out the swimming pool, right, and you basically create, just like I did with my bedroom when I was overcoming schizophrenia, I just created my own little bubble, and I basically focused on where I wanted to go. And so what I would really advise people to do is to get off that treadmill, get off that media, and really focus on building a life for them, their family, their loved ones, the things that they actually have control in life. Take back control, and by focusing on your own little world and the people that are important to you, but using some of these principles there. So these are the sort of tips I would give you to get over anxiety and depression, if you like, at the moment.
Well, absolutely excellent tips there. Actually, it reminds me, from what Brian was saying, it reminds me of that movie, The Hunger Games, where the controllers can actually control the weather and the waves, and the contestants are trying to fight against all the control that's involved in that whole story.
One of the things you've got to realise is, right, even the media, and there's 5 or 6 people own all the media, and that includes all the cinema and all the movies and all the narratives that they're constantly feeding out to us. So, for example, how many disaster movies have you seen where there's been shortage of food and people are panicking and running about, and build zombie movies, all kinds of movies. There's even been movies out about viruses and stuff. So it's kind of like they're training us to react. So when something actually happens, is people know how to panic because I've seen it that many times watching movies. They know to go out and empty all the shelves and shops and stuff like that. So you need to be aware of that we're being constantly influenced and mentally trained to respond in a specific way. And all media are owned by 5 or 6 people who are all coming from the same agenda, with all of the same political view and vision. So you have to remember that and try and detach yourself from that and create your own bubble, your own reality.
So we're in month 3 of lockdown, and we've been very restricted by what we can do. However, despite that, Brian, can you tell us about any plans you've got for the future with your own business?
Well, I've had quite a few years away from Advanced Mind. I was building websites for personal injury lawyers, and it was basically because, especially the last 5 years working with my mother, but I'm coming back now into Advanced Mind. But what I want to do is I want to take everything that I've learned and I want to productize it and make it available online so that it's going to be available to a lot more people. And the first product that I'm working on right now, it's a fast track into meditation, which ties in with everything here, because I've read all these books for years and played around with meditation. And one of the things about that is that a lot of the books, for example, Eckhart Tolle is brilliant, but his book is so complicated. There's people like Sydney Banks and a lot of other spiritual teachers. So what I want to do or what I am doing right now is I want to break all these principles into 3 or 4 points, and I want to be able to deliver the benefits of meditation with the least amount of effort in the shortest period of time. So one of the products I'm creating right now is a fast track into meditation. I haven't even given it a name yet, but I'm starting to build the modules. And what it's going to do, it's going to involve the 4 or 5 principles that I've distilled from reading all these books, and deliver them in such a way that you get the benefits within a couple of hours, starting within a couple of hours, and it builds up over a period of days. And I'll also be using brainwave audio technology along with my hypnosis skills to teach this meditation technique. So that's the first thing. And all the other kind of mind programming stuff that I use with companies, I'm going to be developing them as well, so that people can be able to access this online and just have more control about where they're going to go in the future. So that's my plans for the future.
So you want to contact Brian? Brian, how do people get in touch with you?
Well, there's 2 ways you can contact me right now, right? Because like I said, I'm in the middle of setting things up. If you're interested in working with me in a one-to-one for therapy, just send me an email at the moment at brian@influencemarketing.com, right? If you want to if you want to know more about my online stuff and any future events, if you go to mindsetforwinning.com, so it's mindset and then the word forwinning.com, all one word. Put in your email address, and what I will do, I might not get back to you right away, but what I'll do is I'll give you a couple of free hypnosis and brainwave audios, and you'll be on my mailing list, and I'll be able to tell you when these programs are released. And also I'll be able to share with you some further tips and ideas and experiences to help you at a specific time in lockdown. So these are the 2 ways that you can actually get in touch with me at the moment.
Brian Halliday, thank you very much.
Okay, Vincent, it was good to see you, and I'll catch up with you again.
So that was Brian Halliday. Absolutely fascinating guy. So if you want to learn how to use the power of persuasion, get in touch with Brian as soon as possible. We also are joined tonight by Laura Binney and Carsden Quisler. Welcome, Laura and Carsden. And Laura and Carsden are 2 of our regular raconteurs. And Laura and Graham run Glass Bullet Media Productions. And Laura's the company I mentioned at the start of the show who did the TV adverts for the SSPCA. So if you're looking for TV advert producers, video production in Scotland, go to the top video company, Glass Bullet Media Productions. So there we are. And I hope you enjoyed Brian's interview. Now, we're coming up to the end of the tonight's show. We're going for the sprint finish. And each show I try to recommend an inspirational movie or TV show for you to watch, because if you're still stuck indoors in lockdown and you're looking for something to do and you're trying not to go crazy, it's a really good therapy to watch an inspirational movie. So this week, I'm going to suggest watching the film The Aviator, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. And I've noticed with Leonardo DiCaprio, a lot of his films, he actually plays the roles of people who really did exist. And I can tell he's an actor who really steeps himself in the character. And I can tell that DiCaprio really does appreciate that character in history, which is probably why he enjoys doing his work. And The Aviator is the true story of a most amazing being on Earth. He's no longer alive. Howard Hughes. He was an industrialist. He was a filmmaker. As far as I'm aware, he never actually went to university, so he never had any training in engineering or filmmaking, but he designed planes. He designed the fastest planes at the time. He designed the plane with no rivets so that it would be more aerodynamic. And he also made lots of movies. And as far as I'm aware, he had no training in how to use a camera or how to write a script. but he just did things. He made things, and he was also very successful in business. Really, I would say he was a spiritual being. Uh, However, he was crippled with obsessive compulsive disorder. And it was really bad. And it was so sad for Howard Hughes because in the 50s and the 60s, they didn't know about OCD. They didn't have a name for it. They didn't know about neuroplasticity of the brain. And they probably didn't have the medications that they have now that they can help people with OCD. And the poor guy was just getting more and more paranoid, and he was struggling to just try and lead a normal life. So he had this awful predicament of having, yes, he had success, he had the money, he was going out with beautiful film starlets, he had lots of relationships, but he was plagued. He couldn't enjoy it. He couldn't enjoy his life because he was plagued by obsessive compulsive disorder, mental health illness, and sadly, there was no one to come along and say, by the way, this is what you've got, this is what you need to get better. But he did live to a good age. I think he died in the 70s, and I'm not sure who his legacy went to, but Hughes Industries still exists to this day. I think, in fact, they might even still be making aircraft. But he was a really interesting soul on the planet, and he did make a difference in this world. But it's just that he suffered from this chronic mental illness, and there are loads of books on Howard Hughes. This movie is a really good movie, so and it's about his spirit trying to fight against this illness, and in a way he does triumph because he was never suicidal. He kept going to the end, and he passed of natural causes. And actually, I got on the DVD set that I've got. There's a separate DVD which is about which has Leonardo DiCaprio being interviewed about Howard Hughes and the whole mental health aspect of Howard Hughes's life. So that is the movie I would recommend. And in fact, you can probably get this DVD in most your local charity shop. Or maybe you can download it from the internet. But it's a really good and inspiring movie about the human spirit dealing with the impossible. And even when he was alive, he was up against opposition when he was trying to make his films about fighter pilots. He had one scene where he had all these planes with cameras, and he needed one more camera, and so he went to the big boys at Hollywood and said, "Can you lend me an extra camera?" And they wouldn't lend him the camera. So he actually had people trying to block his process, as well as OCD being a major block there. And unfortunately, if you watch the film, you'll see that most of his life, he knew something was wrong. It's just he didn't know what it was, and there was no one around to tell him what it was because we didn't know about this until many decades later. And so, people now who suffer from the same illness, there's amazing resources to help them. There's medication, there's books, there's classes, there's online help to deal with OCD behaviors and chronic OCD. So um, that's my recommended film for you to watch if you get the chance to watch the Aviator. And Carson's just saying, Carson's saying that he left millions to a truck driver who picked him up thinking that he was a tramp. Well, that's lucky for the truck driver. That was good. So Howard Hughes was definitely a philanthropist as well as a creative genius and an engineering genius and a really, I would say, a really lovely spiritual being on the planet. And he's an example. He's an inspiration to other people who maybe suffer from chronic OCD. Just keep going, don't give up. And there are now, we're fortunate we have resources to deal with that condition. So that's us come to the end of this show. Um, all that remains for me to do is to thank our guest tonight, Brian Halliday, and also our raconteurs who joined us tonight. We had William Ritchie, Haley Pender, Laura Binney, and the Carsden Quizzler. So thank you, folks, for joining us. And also thank you, our viewers, for watching as well. Thanks for spending this time with us. And I hope you enjoyed our concentration meditation tonight. And I hope you enjoyed listening to Brian Halliday, an absolutely fascinating guy. So I hope you'll get in touch with him. So we'll join you next time with Dr. Yvonne Mitchell. Namaste. Have a good week, have a good weekend, and we will see you next time. Run credits. Bye for now.